Welcome back to this episode of Built from the Inside Out. And I say this episode because the last one got cut off. It was raining, there was sort of a storm, and our internet went out. So here we are back again. I'm here with my amazing husband, Juan Nava. Hey, babe.
What's up?
Thank you for being here today again.
Thank you for having me again.
Of course, of course. All right. So we were talking about biblical relationships. And do you remember where we left off?
I think we were just starting to talk about the ungood woman or the woman to stay away from.
Yeah, I think we talked about her. I think we were starting to go into
Um,
what the qualities are or what the Bible says about each.
okay.
So First Peter 3 says, "Wives, in the same way submit yourselves to your own husbands, so that if any of them do not believe the word, they may be won over without words by the behavior of their wives. When they see the purity and reverence of your lives, your beauty should not come from outward adornment such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. For this is the way the holy women of the past who put their hope in God used to adorn themselves. They submitted themselves to their own husbands, like Sarah who obeyed Abraham and called him her Lord. You are her daughters if you do what is right and do not give way to fear. Husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives and treat them with respect as the weaker partner and as heirs with you of the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers." All right, so there's a few things we can get out of this.
Yeah.
So it says, "Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands." So I know a lot of people get mad when they hear this because they think it means just do whatever he says and let him step all over you. And that's actually not what that means. How would you explain that, submitting to your husbands?
I think it's um it's a two-way street, right? And you meet in the middle. That being said, it's the husband must surrender to God and create that space for the woman to surrender, his wife to surrender to him. And we're called as a husband to love the wife as Jesus loved the church. And Jesus didn't manipulate anybody. He didn't say, "I'm in charge, you're going to do what I say." What did he do? He showed love and compassion to everybody, to sinners, to every single person. He gave his life. So when a husband shows that he will give his life to his wife, that she is the most important thing and that he's going to protect her and everything he does is bring her up and bring them up together, why would the woman not want to submit?
Mm,
When the man creates that space, what's stopping the woman from submitting?
yeah. Yeah. And I think also another thing to remember is sometimes I hear people say they don't want to let the men lead because they're like, oh, he doesn't know or he doesn't understand or I'm better at him than I'm better at this than he is or he's dumb, he doesn't know. And my question to you is then why did you pick him? When you are dating and you're getting to know someone, keep that in mind. You are choosing not only your partner, as in, like, this is the person I'm going to have sex with, this is the person who's going to lead you. So make sure that this is a smart person. This person has good morals and values. Make sure that this person is capable and you respect them because if you don't respect them, that's already a red flag. Like, why would you want to marry someone you don't respect?
Yeah. Also, are you creating that space for them to lead? Are you giving them a position of leadership or are you just being like, nah, they don't know? Just knocking them
Mm,
before you give them the chance. The Bible says that the wife is the counsel to the husband. So maybe you might know something more than him. You might be better in something than him. Big deal. Help him out. Give him the counsel he needs. Guys don't know everything, women don't know everything, but together you make a full marriage. It's not one person does everything and the other person is just along for the ride. It takes both of them.
mhm,
That's what if you're 100%, you don't need anybody else. And none of us are 100%. We need each other. Like that's
mhm.
why God made us. He said the man should not be alone. He needs a helper. So help the man as well.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and also going back to that, whenever he said that he was making Eve to be the helper, whenever you guys sit down, well, I would recommend you doing this because Juan and I did it, and I think it's something great. You sit down and write down your goals. So make sure that you're working as a team because if he's doing his own thing and you're doing your own thing, something completely different, and you guys aren't focused on building together, that's going to lead you guys to drift apart. So find a common, so that's not only biblical, but that's also psychological. Find a common goal and work together towards it. And I know you guys have heard that saying that the man is the head and the wife is the neck that turns said head. And what that means is that like she'll counsel him and she'll be there to help him. And I know you guys have also heard behind every great man is a great woman. That's very true as well. A woman has a capability of building or destroying her man. With her own hands, she can either build her house or she can destroy it. And that's also biblical. We have so much power. I know it sounds like the men, well, it sounds like, oh, the men's in charge and we have to do whatever the man says. The man is, I don't want to say he's as good as the woman that he's with, but to a certain degree, I would say yes.
I don't think anything motivates a man more than his woman.
Mm.
So if you want, that's why there's always a honeydew list, right? Because y'all see things that are needed in the house, and you're like, hey, we need to do this. Hey, maybe the AC filter needs to be changed. Hey, this light bulb is up. Maybe the man didn't see it. Maybe he doesn't go in that room. Maybe he just walks to the house with the lights off. I do that. Um, so I mean, I changed my light bulbs, but I mean, make it a 50-50. It's not really a 50-50 thing, but y'all are both bringing y'all's best of each other to make
Mhm.
it the best marriage you can have.
Yeah. And there's no need for you to want to take over his role, for him to want to take over your role. There's a time where you're like, if you everything's good, you can bring the best of you, he can bring the best of him. And we know that life is imperfect, so there are ups and downs. So there are times when he's gonna have to step in and help you do the things that you usually do, or you're gonna have to step in and do the things that he usually does for whatever reason, right? Life is so unpredictable. But just be there for each other.
Yeah, and also don't take this as to you need to mother him,
Mm,
because that will do psychological things with him that is going to make him kind of shut down, lead on you instead of you leaning on him. It's basically a testosterone suppressor. You're going to suppress that man to be from being a man. He needs to be a man. He needs to feel the stress. He needs to feel all the weight of everything, of the whole. That's what we're meant to do. That's what we're
mm,
called to do. Jesus took the weight of our sins because he loved the church. The man is to take the weight of all of the marriage, and the woman helps him carry that weight.
mm.
So don't mother him. Let him be a man, but still give him counsel when needed.
Right. And psychologically speaking, when you mother a guy, it kills the sexual attraction as well. So you always want him to be sexually attracted to you. So don't mother him, like you said, counsel him instead. And if anything, make sure that you make him feel like you respect him and you admire him and that you do trust his decisions that he makes. So going on to verse 2, it says, when they see the purity and reverence of your lives, your beauty should not come from outward adornments such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. So again, we go back to and then forces, rather it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is great worth in God's sight. So we talked about what to do when you're single and you're looking, look for a godly man. What are the signs? But what if maybe you're already married or you're already in a relationship and you love this person? And something that Juan and I talked about is that this happened to us because whenever we met, we both grew up in Christian homes, but we had both strayed. So when we met, we weren't close to God or we didn't really have a great relationship with God. Not saying like we were mad at God or anything. We had just strayed. So what happened to us personally was whenever we started dating, we got closer to God. And I know he'll tell you about his side, but even for me, I've gotten closer to God since I've been with him and it's just I don't even know like how to explain like why, but you did bring me closer to God.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I had strayed away too. I think it was more the fact that my mom's super, super um old school in her faith, that and she's a Sunday school teacher, so every conversation I had with her was like if I was in Sunday school. So I was like feeling like it was shoved down my throat. So when you box somebody in, you just feed them all this, all they want to do is break free. And that's
Mhm.
basically what happened to me. Is that's what I wanted to do. But when finding you, I found this this peace, this calmness that was different. Never felt it before, right?
Mm.
Something I'd say that God used you to touch me.
Mm.
And we weren't perfect. We didn't know exactly what to do. We didn't even have a church to go to.
Mhm.
We tried 5 different churches. We did the work. We wanted to
Mhm.
find something that spoke to us that would like we're like, "Hey, this is where I feel like God's calling me to be.
Mhm.
This is a good message." We found an amazing church that they are Bible based. They will tell you the truth every single time. Pastor Tim is awesome at explaining the word, making sure you understand it, giving you visuals, and just making sure that you're building your faith. It's not just a hey, God loves you. No, it's
Mhm.
like hey, God is a very stern and powerful God, and He calls you to do this, so you need to do it.
Mhm. Shout out to New Hope Church.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I think also, how it says that marriage is a gift from God and marriage was designed by God. I think it all marriage brought me closer to him because I was like, okay, now I'm with someone, and that means the possibility of us having kids is there even before we were married, because that's what you need to look for, right? Whenever you're looking for a partner, you're like, not only am I choosing a life partner, I'm also choosing the future father of my kids. So I asked myself, what do I want from the future father of my kids? Someone who's going to help me raise them in the same way that I was raised, and who has my same morals, values, beliefs. And I was like, okay, well, we need to get a church. So that's when we started looking. And the fact that he grew up in a Christian home, the fact that he was very willing to go with me and go to different churches and find which one we felt the most comfortable in, to me, that meant so much to me that I was like, okay, he is marriage material. I can see him being my husband, and I can see him being the father of my children.
yeah. I think one way to explain it is maybe I wasn't thinking so far into the future, and then when I met you, I was like, I want a future with you.
Mhm.
I need to think about that future. I need to be very intent on what we're going to be doing.
Mhm.
And I think that's what, what led us down that path. And you were my counsel on that. You're like, we tried a couple different churches and you actually recommended New Hope. Um,
Mhm.
and you're like, hey, we need to do this. And I'm like, 100%. Um, like I said, you want to find a motivated man?
Mhm.
It's going to be motivated by that woman.
Mm.
So, I mean, a huge part of me coming back to God, to Christ, is through you. Like I said, He used you.
Mhm.
And if He used me for the same, that means that I'm doing my part, right? I'm the helping lead. I'm leading
Mhm.
through Him. It
Mhm.
wasn't me. I can't be like, oh yeah, I wanted to do this or that. No, absolutely not. He used you as my counsel and put me to lead. And now we're where we're at, and we're not perfect. We're still growing every single day. We're still trying to build our faith. It's something that we'll be doing for the rest of our lives.
Mhm.
So don't think that we're like, oh, this perfect couple, because we're not. We're a great couple, but we're still working on everything. We're working on ourselves. We're working on our relationship with Christ, with each other, and just trying to share some of what we've learned. Maybe it can help y'all.
Mhm. And that this doesn't mean like go and find an unbeliever and try to change his mind. That's not what this means.
No,
Just want to make sure that that's understood.
yeah, it goes back to what we said yesterday. You don't get with somebody from different yokes, right?
Mhm.
Because people will say like the Quran is the closest to the Bible. I I believe that's what they say, and there's still differences, right? So you're still gonna be like, oh, this is what I believe, this is what you believe, and you're gonna be going back and forth. Or you're trying to
Mhm.
convert somebody, and you're trying to convert somebody. That's not something you can do. It's something only
Right.
God can do.
Mhm.
So the best thing to do is pray for that person,
Right.
guide them, show them, pray, leave it in the hands of God.
Mhm.
Tell them to give you the strength and the wisdom to leave this person if it's not for you,
Mhm.
and pray for them if it is for you, for Him to speak through you.
Mhm.
So don't go find an unbeliever and find a project. If you do find somebody who's not a believer, open up those doors, open up those conversations. If you see something in them, pray. Pray on it.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, because I'm thinking, I'm like, if when I was single, to me that was a deal breaker. If you're not already a believer, because to me it's you're supposed to be the leader, so I can't teach you everything and I can't do everything for you. I'm gonna need you to come with something already. So even though you had strayed, you were raised that way.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important too. So just kind of keep that in mind. I know everybody's different. Everybody has different deal breakers or different things that they want. But me personally, that's what I would tell someone.
Yeah. I don't think that's bad advice at all, but I also don't think that people should just stray away from somebody who's a non-believer because we're called to get those to leave the 99 for the one.
Right. But it's one thing to help someone as a friend versus trying to be in a relationship with someone.
Yeah.
Two different things.
Right.
Yeah, because that's what it means to not yoke, to not come together with someone who's not like you. So you can be their friend all day long. You can pray for them, but don't date them. Don't like for a serious relationship. That's what I would say. Unless they are very open and very willing and they're very interested and they're the ones asking you questions or taking the initiative. Then I would be like, okay.
Yeah. Just make sure that whenever you have those initial conversations and stuff, make it be known that you are a follower of Christ. Don't just have it in your what is it, your headline or whatever it is, like um their bio on
Oh.
Instagram, like God is good. Show them that that's
Mhm.
something important to you. That um don't just do it for
Mm.
to post it.
Yeah.
If you show that, you're gonna attract that.
Right. Yeah, yeah, because we attract what we are. All right. So going on, it says, how the holy women of the past who put their hope in God used to adorn themselves. They submitted themselves to their own husbands, and like Sarah, who obeyed Abraham and called him her Lord, you are her daughters if you do what is right and do not give way to fear. Now, this to me was important because I hear when I tell people or when people talk about submitting to their husbands, or even like people who want, I know the masculine versus feminine energy is very, it's a very popular topic right now, and people are like, oh, I want to be in my feminine. So now you have people talking about stay at home wives, stay at home moms, and they're like, but I'm scared because I saw this somewhere, or this happened to someone I know, where the woman stayed at home, she didn't have a job, she relied fully on her husband, and then the husband cheated and left, or something along those lines, right? So they're like, I need to work because what if something does happen, or I need to have the secret stash because what if something does happen. Here it says, do not give way to fear. So if you are in a truly godly relationship, like you're not just with someone who calls themselves Christian, but someone who is actually God fearing, you should not live in fear. And yesterday when we talked about this, you had some really good points that I liked.
Um, well, what just came to my mind right now when you're saying that is how little is your faith?
Mm,
If you believe in this supernatural God who can raise the dead, if you do what he's calling you to do, and we read this yesterday, he says doesn't don't just sit at home if you're a stay at home. He says you're looking towards the future. You're taking care of what's at home. You're taking care of that, and you can do stuff for yourself as well. It doesn't mean just because you've submitted to the husband, you're at stay at home, that you do nothing and all you do is fold clothes all day.
mm,
Like you're doing stuff that's for you as well. You're making sure that you're filling their cup, but you're also filling your cup as well. So you're finding something you're passionate about.
mhm.
But if you're doing everything God calls you to do, he like there's nothing he can't do.
Right.
You have the protection of God. He's not
Mhm.
going to lead you anywhere that he's not going to take you through.
Yeah, and if you're living in fear and you're like, "Oh, I'm scared that he's gonna do this," we've heard of manifestation. We know what happens when you think that way. So, like it says, do not live in fear. And I could use an example. This year, I had the opportunity to either have my little secret stash in case anything happened, or I could have faith in God and say, "You know what? I'm living according to what you tell me to do. I'm putting this into my household, my marriage, and we're gonna work as a team." And I feel like he has blessed us, and that's the reason he gave me the opportunities that he did, because he's like, she's gonna follow what I tell her to do. Now, because a lot of people don't understand, like sometimes they're like, oh, I want money, or sometimes God doesn't give you money if He feels like you're not going to do what you're supposed to do. Now, on the other side of things, if you're someone who's married to someone who is not a godly or a God fearing man, then I can't really tell you don't have that secret stash, or don't have like something just in case something happens, because I have seen that women who marry not men who are not God fearing, and then it does end up really bad for them because they didn't think of themselves, and then he goes out, cheats, and leaves them, right? But then again, we do live in Texas, so I feel like we are pretty protected.
Yeah, I would say that's where you talked about yesterday. Pray for your discernment.
Hmm.
If you're just finding God and you feel like your marriage isn't there, pray for it, lean on it, make sure that you're making it something that is important to you. Like I said, a motivated man. And I'm
Hmm.
not going to say that just because he's a follower of Christ or not, that a woman isn't going to motivate that man.
Mm.
That's just going to determine on that person, right? That they'll have to do some work and get rid of the ego, understand that the wife comes before them. And once if you do your work and he's open and willing, and he'll show you, you'll know if he's open and willing to do work, then you're gonna get that blessing from God. And if it's not, then pray for God to give you the guidance of what your next step is gonna be.
Hmm. Yeah, that's why it's when it comes to what the Bible says to do, it's very for people who actually fear them, right? And then that's why divorce is like 50%. The rate is 50% of marriages end up in divorce because they're not following biblical what the Bible says. Versus when you actually follow it, you have the perfect scenario, right? Like how they say in a perfect world it would be like this. If you follow it, then obviously, like I've said a million times, perfection doesn't exist, but you get the best situation, or you put yourself in the best situation that you possibly can when you actually follow what the Bible says. All right, and then number 7 says, husbands, in the same way, be considerate as to live with your wives and treat them with respect as a weaker partner and as heirs with you of the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. I know some people would be like, the weaker partner. It's nothing bad. It's just physically we're not as strong at them as them. They do have they were given that. We are more emotional. They are more logical. It's not a bad thing. He gave us men to protect us and lead us. And in order for them to do that, they have to rely on God that He's going to protect them and lead them.
Yeah, if your woman's stronger than you, man, get your gains up.
Hey,
Um,
that is true.
no, I think it just means to like we're different, right? Our gender roles are different. Where the man is designed and made to be the stronger person, like you said, whether that be physically, emotionally, and really even spiritually, because we're called to be the leaders. Um, and so we need to work on yourself. And this is speaking for a believer, right? Work on yourself. Your body is a temple, so treat it that way. Um, Not saying you got to be this super strict, regimented person, but whatever you got to do to make yourself stronger physically, emotionally, be able to protect. Um, and also, like you said, the logic, a lot of that protection part, just don't be putting you and your wife in a scenario you don't need to be in. Don't go out to places you know stuff, bad stuff happens, or that you're going to be put in this situation. Just stay away from that.
Hmm.
Find other things to do. They don't have to be this big physical person if they're just smart enough to not go put themselves in places where they don't need to be.
Hmm.
Learn to de-escalate things.
Yeah. And I looked up, because I felt like I was saying it wrong. So 2 Corinthians 6:14 says, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers." That's the right way to say it. I just had to say that because it was bugging me. It says, "For what partnership has righteousness and lawlessness, or what fellowship has light with darkness?" All right, so going on to the next verse.
Well, I think here on 3:7,
Mhm.
where it ends in as heirs with your gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. Um,
Mm.
that's huge. That's the way we communicate with God.
Mm.
If you're not respecting your wife, putting her, showing her the love she's supposed, you're you're called to do and that you should be having towards her, your prayers will go unheard.
Mhm.
So that's how important marriage is to God.
Mm.
He will basically say, I'm not talking to you till you fix your stuff.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also talks about that in a different verse where it says, "If you're mad at your brother, he's not gonna listen to your prayer either." So basically, like, you need to be right first. Like, you need to be doing what he tells you to do before you come and ask him for stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's putting him first, right? That's putting God first so that you're good with him. He's filling your cup to allow you to fill your partner's cup. And then when y'all are filling each other's cup because y'all are second, then your cup overflows
Mm,
on three. So
I like it.
This episode was brought to you by BCN Supplements, our all natural supplement company. First off, we have our hydrolyzed collagen. This is a 4-in-1. It comes with vitamin C for better absorption, hyaluronic acid, and biotin. So, this is good for your skin, your hair, your nails, and your joints. And this is for both men and women. Next up, we have our Immunity, which is a 7-in-1 vitamin. It has vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, echinacea, elderberry, black pepper, and garlic bulb. So this will give your immune system that extra boost. And lastly, we have our natural pre-workout. It does have 325 milligrams of natural caffeine from green tea. It is sweetened with stevia, and its purpose is energy, focus, and endurance. And for our listeners, we do have a discount code. If you visit our website, www.bcnsupps.com, you can use code BUILT, BUILT, for 10% off. Thank you so much for listening.
All right. So Ephesians 5:21 says instructions for Christian households. And 21 says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as you do to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. And then it says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they fed and cared for it, just as Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. All right, so also a lot to unload in this one.
yeah.
All right, so like we spoke earlier about submitting to your husband, I know a lot of people are scared that that means that he's going to do whatever he wants, he's going to step all over you. But in reality, that's not the case because it does say, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church, which means the man's love is a sacrificial love. He's going to do everything he can for you. He is a person who will have your best interest at heart, and everything and every decision that he takes is going to be for your own good. Another thing you had mentioned yesterday when we talked was if you have trouble submitting to your husband, you also have trouble submitting to God.
Yeah, absolutely. The same goes for men, right? Where our ego may be too big. We may think we have it all figured out. I mention ego a lot because that's a big trait amongst men. Is having ego, and we know ego is a destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
So don't have the ego, submitting to Christ. Also, when the woman submits and she allows the man to take charge, if that man loves himself and he knows how to, like, he has love for that woman, a man will go to the end of his rope to do whatever for that woman when he knows that she's got his back. So if you make that man feel respected and loved, there should be no problem with it as long as he's right with himself.
I like that. And it says, again, he's the head of the wife. We go back to why? Because he is logical. And that's just the way God intended it to be. And I feel like for women, it's also ego and lack of faith.
Yeah.
Whenever they don't want to let the men lead because they're like, why does he get to do that? Why not me? I'm smarter. I'm this.
Yeah, and a lot of this we're speaking to is the people who are in the dating, right? So
Mhm.
you're gonna want to look for somebody you can lead.
Mhm.
Just getting different. Don't put bad scenarios in front of yourselves, but scenarios are gonna come up where you're gonna see when that man is tested, when there's, you know, when he's stressed. How does he react when he's stressed? Can he lead? Can he make decisions under, different environments? Whether it could be any, like, how competitive are they? How do they act towards you, even with competitiveness? And when there's
Mhm.
high stress levels, when their testosterone is up, when you got endorphins going, how do they act? Pay attention to all that. Don't just be
Mhm.
like, oh my God, he's so cute. Like, pay attention to that, and you're gonna see so much.
Yeah. Well, now that you mentioned compete, I think that's a big one too. Don't compete with your spouse. I feel like some people tend to do that. And you're not you're supposed to be a team. You're supposed to be working together. You're not supposed to be competing against each other. So over here, it talks about also for this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife. And the two will become one flesh. And I think that's so important because a lot of people don't understand. Once you get married, your immediate family is now your extended family, and your spouse is your immediate family. And that person needs to come first. First before your mom, before your dad, before your siblings is that person. Make sure that person is taken care of. If you're the man, make sure that you are providing for that woman. And then if you guys have money left over and you want to help your family, then that's when you do it. But you don't take money out of the things that you could be working towards together as a marriage for the future. You don't take that money and then you give it to your family. If I know in the Hispanic culture that's very traditional, very common, where they make you feel like you're supposed to give money to your family. But what the Bible actually says is that your parents are supposed to leave you an inheritance. And then you leave your kids an inheritance. And then it snowballs, right? And that's how you create generational wealth. How are you going to create generational wealth if you keep going backwards instead of forward? So your parents should be able to take care of themselves. They've been alive longer than you. They should have things figured out. They should not be your responsibility. Now, if they're like super old and they're in that stage where now they need assistance, I feel like that's a little bit different, right? And obviously you're going to be there for them, but you shouldn't be, they shouldn't depend on you if they're healthy and they're able to work and they're in their, what do you call it? Like, if they're able, right? Basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, like you said, it's huge in Hispanic culture, to where it's like, oh, that's my mom. When nobody know a woman's ever gonna take the spot of my mom's. I'm like,
That's crazy.
yeah, like what? Okay, so you're just gonna be a little mama's boy and stay at home the rest of your life. You're never gonna grow up. You're gonna depend on her to fold your clothes, wash your clothes. Like, first, man up, be a man. Second, absolutely, as you said, that once you leave and you marry somebody, that's your immediate family.
Hmm.
It Four walls. I'm huge, and Brandon hears me say it all the time, that I take care of my four walls. If it's not happening in my four walls, that's not my concern. Once my four walls are taken care of, then I can allocate time and energy towards something else. But four walls first. That
Hmm.
means in your house, with your wife, kids, yeah, shit, almost even your dog. If that's in your four walls, then you start allocating that time and energy out towards other things. I'm not saying be like, nope, not my problem. Nope, not my problem. But concern yourself with your priorities first.
Hmm.
Do those things first. Make sure all your stuff is taken care of,
Hmm.
and then you have time to start doing that. If your parents didn't make the best decisions and it hindered you, feel like, you felt that effect growing up, you're seeing it. Make sure that you're doing something so that your kids don't feel that same way. That you
Hmm.
create the opportunity for your kids. How are you going to create those opportunities for your kids if you're sitting there trying to throw time, energy, and money back for the parents to have that opportunity?
Hmm.
You're, like you said, creating general wealth. The snowball goes forward. It doesn't start going back up the mountain
Hmm.
to get more snow. It gets snow as it goes down. So keep it going down.
Mm-hmm.
Just take care of that stuff first, and you'll be able to help them so much more
Mm-hmm.
than if you sit there and try to spread yourself so thin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like, yes, I understand, right? You're like, oh, well, I'm in this position. They gave me the opportunity, and now I'm able to help. The best thing you can do to uh, thank them is do better for yourself and do better for your future kids. They will appreciate that a lot more than if you are straining yourself or putting yourself or keeping yourself from getting to where you need to get because you're trying to work backwards. And like I said again, we're not saying don't help out, don't just like abandon them, or it's just like, oh, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Now I'm married and I don't know who you are. That's not what we're saying. You can help as long as you and your husband or you and your spouse are taken care of first, and you have extra, then you can help. Also, you don't have to completely just ignore your family and never see them again. That's not what we're saying either. Obviously, you still want to come around, but you don't put them before you put your spouse. You don't take their whatever they say or whatever they want before whatever your spouse says or whatever that your spouse wants.
Yeah, I think it's in Isaiah that God says that we have to tend to our relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a relationship, right? But that's not your priority relationship. Your first relationship and most important relationship is with God.
Mm-hmm.
Second, your wife, if you're
Mm-hmm.
married. Third is yourself. Fourth would be extended family
Mm-hmm.
and loving friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you do it in that order, then you're gonna take care of your stuff. And like you said, they're gonna your parents want what's best for you, unless they're selfish and they have work that they need to do on themselves, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, well, you're doing this now, or you're so and so now," and you just forget about it. That's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
If you tend to those relationships and build your boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
tell them, "Hey, I appreciate everything you did for me. I'm not forgetting about you, but I'm gonna tend to this." And then once me and my spouse decide we're able to do it,
Mm-hmm.
because what if we'll take a scenario that the husband wants to help out his family, his extended family, and the wife wants to help out the extended family. When are y'all doing it for each other? Y'all are doing it
Mm-hmm.
for other people, and what are you doing? You're pulling each other apart instead of
Mm-hmm.
building together and just building it up.
Mm-hmm.
So just food for thought. I mean, I'm not gonna tell anybody what to do, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
We're just telling you what the Bible says.
yeah,
And what psychology says as well. It's up to you if you want to do it or not.
yeah.
Yeah. And then it says, and the two will become one flesh. So, and this is a profound mystery. So, isn't it crazy how it says you become one? So, something that I believe is that, like we talked about souls in the last episode, and we talked about soul ties and how you're tying your soul to that person. I believe that that's what that means. Your souls get tied, you become one. And then in the Bible, it also says when you die, it's until marriage do us apart.
Till
So,
death do us part.
oh, sorry. What?
Yes.
Yes, I'm glad he corrected me. Until death do us apart. So when you die, that's when your souls separate. Because I don't, from what I've read, I don't think you have a partner after you die. You're just this one, not a wandering soul, but it's just you again. But when you come on to earth and you marry someone, you tie your soul to that person, and then until you die, is that you guys separate. Unless, of course, someone steps out and then you guys just mess everything up. But that's not what is supposed to happen.
Yeah, when if you do a Christian premarital counseling, you'll learn that your marriage is three three things becoming three things in one.
Mm,
So it's a covenant between the husband, wife, and God. You're
mhm,
making a promise before God. So it's not, yes, your marriage is in the flesh, but as you said, the soul, because you made that covenant, and God,
mhm,
who who's a true owner of our souls and determines where they go. That's
mm,
God, right?
mhm,
So you made a covenant with him so that you're joining one covenant in a circle, and the three beings are inside that circle, right?
mhm,
So that's why it's a ring, it's everlasting. It's,
mm,
till death do us part. There's no
mhm,
escape out of there. There's no, let
mhm,
me get through this little crack like that. It's you stay together, you work it out, and you depend on God.
mhm. I like it. And you know what's so cool? Our marriage date. So March 3, 11,
Mm-hmm.
2023. So
Mm-hmm.
it's all 1, 2, 3.
Mhm.
So it was two of us. We became one, and three with God. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
Yeah. We didn't think about that. It was just a date that was available. But now when I look back, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. So it says, however, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. So if you guys don't know this, psychologically speaking, for a man, the most important thing is for the woman to respect him. And for women, the most important thing she wants from a man is to love her and make her feel safe. And this is biblical as well.
Yeah, like I said, if you show a man that you trust him to lead, that you respect his opinions, it's huge what he'll do, right? And
Mhm.
some of these guys may not have experienced that in the relationship yet, but you've experienced it at work, I'm assuming.
Mm.
When and if you haven't, you will.
Mhm.
You're gonna have responsibility at work. You're gonna be left to do this task, whatever your job is, anything from construction to white collar, blue collar people, everybody, right? You get left with these different tasks. And how good do you feel when you come through with it? When people are like, hey, good job.
Mm.
You're like, hey, they respect what I did. Now
Mhm.
imagine that coming from somebody you truly, truly love.
Mm.
Imagine creating that space for somebody that you truly, truly love to be like, hey, you did so good. Like, how good do you feel? Like, I can depend on that guy.
Mm.
The same thing happens at work. I mean, I've been a supervisor for plenty of jobs, and it's like I give somebody a task and they get it done right. I'm like, that's my guy right there. I know he can get it done. If that's how I was like, hey, give us whatever. We got it. I got old dude. He'll take care of it. Same thing a wife should feel in a marriage. Whatever you throw at us, he's got it. He's
Mm.
got it. Why? Because God's behind him.
I love that.
So, I mean, create that space. Give him the chances. If you don't, if you struggle with letting go, start small and just allow him to show you what he can do.
Mhm. Yeah. Wow. I love that. Good job, love. That's my guy. That's what I meant. All right. So one more thing I wanted to say before we move on from this one is how it says that you become one. So whenever you talk about your spouse, you're talking about yourself. Just remember that. Because again, going back to your spouse is a reflection of you. When you're talking bad about him, because I some people do this, they'll go and bash their spouse. That's a reflection of you. You're when you do that, I don't hear, oh, this person is so bad. I'm like, oh, I wonder what's wrong with you. I wonder, or I look at you, the person talking bad about your spouse. I don't really think about the spouse because I'm like, yeah, they're wrong, but you're in the wrong too, obviously, because or else you wouldn't be having this problem or you wouldn't be going through this. That's usually how I see it. So there's no need for you to talk bad about your spouse to other people. If you guys have a concern or you guys have a disagreement or you guys are going through something, go to someone you trust. If you're a guy, go to your pastor or if you have a good father or a uncle or somebody, a mentor, somebody that you look up to and you know is wise and is going to give you good advice, go to that one specific person. Don't be telling everybody. And for the woman, if same for you, go to your counselor, your uh someone of the same sex, your mother, if your mother gives you good advice, if you have somebody who you trust, an aunt, but don't go and tell all your friends and about your husband doing all these things. Go to that one specific person and get advice from them, and then that's it. You don't need to talk about it with anyone else.
Yeah, to that, when I hear, I just stay on guys, right? When I hear a guy saying like, she's this, she's that, I really don't care what she is, right?
Mm.
I could care less. But when I hear you saying that, and I'm just like, how miserable are you at home?
Mm.
Why would you be with somebody that way?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what did you do to attract somebody like that?
Mm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
like, if you're saying this about her, what is she saying about you? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, when you were saying stay with the same sex, that's huge, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, but they're such good, they just listen, they're this and that. No,
Mm.
stop it. We already said earlier that a lot of times people are like, oh, well, this person doesn't get with this person, they're available for me. Yeah,
Mm.
that's something you see on movies. Again, you see it all the time. Movies
Mm.
have some truth to them. Like, learn a lesson from other people, and don't have to learn it on your own. Don't learn it the hard way. Um, but yeah, don't speak about that. And then if you do have problems or whatever, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go tell these 3 people. I'm gonna go tell my moms. I'm gonna go tell my brother and my sister. And anytime something's wrong, I'm gonna go and be like, oh, this and that, because you were having an emotional moment, like a vulnerable moment.
Mm.
That's all they're gonna be. And then you do it again and again and again. You've done it 5 times, and the next time they see, you're like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, I know that they're this. They're gonna name those 5 things because that's all they're gonna remember. Negative always
Mm.
outweighs the positive for a lot of people,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So they're gonna be like, "Oh, well, I don't know about them. They're always complaining about them. I don't know how that relationship is." That creates gossip. That creates them to be in your ear just about the negative. When
Mhm.
you could have just been having a bad day and you blew up for no reason, and it seemed a little bit worse than what it was. Find somebody who's gonna not be biased and is just gonna, that they're gonna have your best in mind, and they're not gonna be like, "Oh, well, you remember what they did last time."
Mhm.
You don't want that. You don't need that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 100% true. And we talked about this in our podcast with our
Yeah.
premarital counselor, and yeah, I think that was great because I've seen people online saying, "Oh, but I tell my guy friends because they give me good insight, and that's why I know men so well because I get this insight from them." Uh, you
No,
don't
you
need
don't.
that. Yeah,
They're just telling you what you want to hear, what they
exactly.
think you want to hear.
Yeah, and then also when you do that, I'm someone who doesn't believe in opposite sex friendships. So the fact that they're there, they're waiting for something. They're waiting for that vulnerable moment, and if you come to them, more than likely they're not going to speak well about your partner. They're going to try to belittle them or be like, "Oh, he does that. Well, I wouldn't do that." You
Yeah,
know, so and being a woman, you know this. You know how they are. You know that they're going to be trying to get with you. So just don't open those doors.
absolutely.
So going on to First Timothy. Did I say that right?
Hmm.
First Timothy 5:8. It says, so another task that it gives the husband. It says, anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. So again, when people are like, well, why? Who says that the man has to provide? The Bible. The Bible says that.
So 5:7 actually says, "Give the people these instructions so that no one may be open to blame."
Mm,
So it's saying this is instructions when you're like exactly like you just said. Well, where does it say that? It's in the Bible. God said
mhm,
it.
mhm. Yeah, and obviously, again, we go back to anyone who does not provide for their relatives, especially their own household.
Hmm.
So make sure that your household is taken care of before you try helping out your extended family. Like we said, we're not against that as long as your 4 walls are taken care of first.
Absolutely.
Now going to Colossians 3. It says, wives, submit to your husbands as it is fitting in the Lord. Again, they were like, we're going to make sure we put this in there several times. Husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. Children, obey your parents and everything, for these pleases the Lord. And fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. Just another reminder: submit to your husband, and husbands, love your wives and do not be harsh with them. So, husbands, do not belittle your wives. Do not tell them, "Oh, well, you're not the leader. You what do you know?" Or don't be rude to them, or don't talk to them. Don't talk down on them, or don't be disrespectful to them.
I can always go back to we're called to love our wife the way Christ loved the church. He didn't. He taught lessons. He never talked down on them. He never disrespected them. Everything he did was from love. All the teachings, even when people wronged him, he would say, "Father, forgive them." I mean, even when on the cross, right? Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do.
Hmm.
Everything was of love. So no, never hate speech towards each other. No belittling. No talking down on them. Just always trying to bring them up.
Hmm.
And if it's living in a place of gratitude, right?
Mm.
And of service. If you live in those
Hmm.
2 places and you align yourself with God, it's your life will change.
Yeah, I like that. All right. And the last thing that it says for the men to do, or not to do, actually, we're going to go to Matthew 5:27, and it talks about adultery. Well, not only men, I'm sorry, both. So 27 says, you have heard that it was said, You shall not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. So that's how serious that is. So if you even look at someone and you're like lusting after them, you're already sinning. And it goes to so far as to say, we gouge out your eyes, cut out your arms, do whatever you have to do, but remove yourself from the situation.
I'm not going to tell people to start cutting their limbs off, but you could take those limbs as people.
Okay.
Those people who put you in those,
Yeah.
they only want to hang out to party and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
Start cutting them off. Start giving yourself distance from them. Start seeing how much they come around when you're not partying, when you're not just out there doing things of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Start find a church, find a devotional, a life group, invite them to that. See if they show up.
Mm.
If they don't, maybe it's not somebody you need in your life at the time.
Yeah.
Maybe. So I mean, those people, those relationships that are, everybody loves to use the word toxic, so I'll use it. Those toxic relationships, which they're taking away from you, they're not helping you build.
Mm-hmm.
Start cutting those things off. See how your life changes then. See the new people you come across. See the things God has in store for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I usually tell people, I'm like, don't put yourself in situations because you can be like, oh, I did this, but I know I looked wrong, but it wasn't like that. Well, don't put yourself in that situation then. Like, don't like for me, like I don't like going out without my husband. I especially like to. Well, I don't. We don't even really go to clubs anymore or drink. But like going out by yourself to clubs, drinking, getting drunk, and just opening those possibilities. And maybe you go out and you have fun and you drink with your girls and nothing happens. But why would you even want to put yourself in that situation? I don't know. I personally wouldn't. Well, one because I don't think it's right, and two, maybe I'm just getting old as well.
Yeah, if you ever have to say, "Oh, it wasn't like that," you shouldn't be in a spot where you have to say it wasn't like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, have some emotional intelligence to understand that you're a reflection of your partner. If you're out there, guy or girl, out there just at a bar, or club, or any place, just acting a fool like that, and most people's first thing is like, "Where's your partner at?" Like,
Why are you
how?
here?
Yeah, how dumb do they look? Do they know you're out here like this?
Mm,
Like, I forget exactly which one it was that we read earlier, and it says that she's respected and her husband's name is respected.
Proverbs 31.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because she carried herself, it talked about being a good woman. The same thing goes for a guy. You can't be out there acting a fool, doing this and that. Get your priorities in order.
Mm-hmm.
Get your household in order. Take care of that. Your spouse, the person you're dating, that you're dating to be your spouse, should honestly be your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
You should want to do all your stuff with them. Not you don't need, oh, I had to go do this and that. There's plenty of times when you could do stuff as a group. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, only guys can go do this. Don't be in a situation where you feel like only guys can do it. And if it's like if you're going hunting, fishing, take your girl with you. You know, people are like, oh, you're the guy who always brings your girl. So what? It's the most important thing in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you not want her there to experience those things with you?
Yeah. I agree. And yeah, and that goes for like any kind of situation. Also, like I mentioned before, I don't believe in opposite sex friendships. I feel like it opens doors to certain things. And like I heard of this story where this guy he was at work and he started feeling attracted to this one lady. I'm assuming that he opened doors. He like started having conversations with her and but he ended up telling his wife about it, and obviously the wife was hurt and everything, but they ended up staying together because he quit his job and he went and worked somewhere else. So he chose his marriage, and he actually like he was in a situation where he was like, I'm feeling tempted. I feel like I'm gonna fall. Let me do something about it. Let me get out of here. So I mean, obviously it's sad that it even got to that place, but at least he, removed himself from that situation. So I don't know, just something to think about.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that adultery is like it talks so much about it and how bad it is because again, like we said, soul ties as well. Like you're when you lay in bed with your wife, you're tying your soul to her. And if you go and you have sex with somebody else, you pick up spirits that that person is carrying. You pick up negative things from them. You could pick up an STD and then come back and give it to your wife. Like there's so many reasons why you shouldn't step out on your partner. And like to me, I'm like, that's so just common sense. But then it happens so much. So I'm like, what?
Yeah, I think he
But
speaks to it so much because we're creatures of flesh, right?
right.
So he knows what the flesh wants, and it's a lot of worldly things. So
Mm-hmm.
he speaks on it so much to saying like, you need to listen to me. You
Yeah.
need to put these things in practice.
Yeah. And I think that's also why I'm so big on don't put yourself in that situation because you're right. We are of the flesh. We are here. We have a deceitful heart because of what Adam and Eve did. We are naturally sinful people. So we naturally do have those wants. And if we all, the best thing you can do is go to God and be like, God, help me. I don't want to be this way. And then don't put yourself in those situations. And I think that's the best advice we can give. Like, just don't open doors.
Yeah, I think another easy way to understand it is a person who's a recovering alcoholic doesn't go sit at the bar.
Mm, yeah.
Why is he going to go put himself in a situation to fail?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's
Yeah.
the same thing. Maybe you're not, we'll say this sexaholic, but
Mhm.
your flesh, like it's a desire,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
the same thing with recovering alcoholic. It's the desire they have, or a smoker. They don't go sit around people who are smoking and
Mhm.
be like, no, I'm strong enough to stay away from this every single day, like all the time. No, you put yourself in the best scenarios you can.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's the same thing. Just love yourself and take care of yourself.
Yeah. I agree. I like it. And I think that's it. Those are all the verses we had written down from the Bible that we wanted to talk about. I hope you guys enjoyed this two-part episode. I know we enjoyed talking about it, and I feel like I love doing this not only because I'm allowed to share the things that I'm learning, but it also is something that I'm able to share with the person that I love, and we get to study the Bible together. And to me, that's just so amazing because I feel like we're able to grow
Absolutely.
more every day.
Yeah, and it's they always say like the best learning is if you're teaching. So this makes you
Mhm.
deep dive even a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
So it's something that we get to do together, which is awesome.
Yeah. All right. So, just as a reminder, remember that the perfect person does not exist. The perfect relationship does not exist. The best thing you can do is take what the Bible tells you, try to apply it to your life as much as possible. Work on yourself. If you have childhood traumas, go get that fixed because you will attract what you are. And since the perfect person doesn't exist, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to ask God for discernment. Ask Him to give you the wisdom to really actually get to know their heart and to help you pick someone who has good intentions, someone who is meant for you, someone who is going to bring you closer to him and be a good leader. Or if you're a guy, a good woman into your life. So I hope that all of this was helpful. If it was, please subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications, and give this video a like. Send it to someone who you think might need to hear this. And I'll see you guys on the next one.